Uhuru! One Africa? One nation! One Africa? One nation! One nation! Uhuru! Well, yeah. All right, yes, give yourselves a round of applause for being here because you're in the best place to be. All right, so we are getting ready to start shortly. I just want to thank everyone for being here in attendance at this moment. And just want to give a little housekeeping rules before we go into our program. For anybody who hasn't been to the Uhuru House before, many of you are familiar faces. But if you have never been here, right through this door are your restrooms. You're going to follow the signs that say restroom, and then they'll be right there. We have our security, Comrade Chimarenga, who is wanding at the door, and that is for your safety. And, you know, we just want everybody to know that, yes, we do wand, but that is to make sure that we are secure. We know what kind of organization the Uhuru movement is that's fighting for the freedom and liberation of Black people, of African people all around the world. And we know what the U.S. government has done to organizations like ours to make sure that we are not victorious. So having security helps us, secures us. So we don't think any of y'all are a threat. We know you are our family, we know you're all our friends, and we appreciate you for being here. So Uhuru, we're going to give it just a couple more minutes. We are opening up with a beautiful cultural performance from a Black Pride 96 programmer, Imani Rogers. So we're going to have a little bit more. You have a little chance left to come meet and greet with our chairman and get some refreshments before the official start of our program. Uhuru. Uhuru, I'm back. Uhuru comrades, brothers and sisters. So this concludes our meet and greet with the chairman. And I asked, well, everybody's already in their seats anticipating this. We are going to start this wonderful evening off with a cultural performance from the ever-talented Imani Rogers, supporter and programmer at Black Power 96.3 FM. She is going to be singing for us, so let's put our hands together for Imani.
I'm so happy I get to walk up to the mic and it's my height. You know, usually I'm like, the mic's up here. Okay, so this is one of my favorite pieces. I've actually been performing it a lot lately. So if many of you don't know, Strange Fruit was written by a professor in New York who was completely against the hanging and lynchings of African peoples. And it was first performed by Billie Holiday. So I hope you all enjoy it. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree. Pastoral scenes of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the wind to gather, for the rain to suck, for the sun to ride, for the tree to drop. Here is a strange and bitter and bitter crop. Thank you.
Uhuru, one more round of applause for that amazing performance. Thank you so much, Imani. And you can catch Imani on the show Psychedelic every Saturday from noon to 2 on Black Power 96.3 FM. I want to appreciate you for opening up this amazing event, an evening with Chairman Omali Yeshitela, report from the Oxford Union. And I want to welcome you to Aquaba Hall, and thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Akile Anai. I'm the director of the Department of Agitation and Propaganda for the African People's Socialist Party, as well as your MC for this historic event. We have such an amazing program for you all tonight. This event is to celebrate Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the St. Pete-born African freedom fighter who has been fighting for black communities all around the world for the past 50 years. Yes, Uhuru. As you all should know, Chairman traveled to Oxford, London on January 24th after receiving an invitation to participate in the Oxford debates, and he delivered a powerful presentation that inspired African people everywhere it is we have been dispersed. So we are going to celebrate that tonight with all of you. But first, for some of you, This may be your first time here at Aquaba Hall or any Uhuru Movement event, period. We want to take this time to give you a glimpse of who we are, the work that we do, why we do it, and what we stand for. Uhuru.
There's a train that comes from Namibia and Malawi. There's a train that comes from Zambia and Zimbabwe. There's a train that comes from Angola and Mozambique. From Lesotho, from Botswana, from Swaziland. From all the hinterlands of Southern and Central Africa. This train carries young and old African men who are conscripted to come and work on contract in the gold and mineral mines of Johannesburg and its surrounding metropoli. 16 hours or more a day for almost no pay. Deep, deep, deep down in the belly of the earth, when they are digging and drilling for that shiny, mighty, evasive stone, or when they dish that mishmash food into their iron plates with the iron shovel. Or when they sit in their stinky, funky, filthy, flea-ridden barracks and hostels, they think about the loved ones they may never see again because they might already have been forcibly removed from where they last left them, or wantonly murdered in the dead of night by roving and marauding gangs of no particular origin. We are told to think about their lands and their herds that were taken away from them with the gun and the bomb and the tear gas and the Gatling and the cannon. And when they hear that choo-choo train, a chucking and a pumping and a smoking, a pushing, a pumping, crying. They always cuss and they curse the coal train that brought them to Johannesburg.
We have created the Black Power Blueprint because we are very serious about overcoming the grave disparities in this country and city between the conditions faced by white people and by Africans. The Black Power Blueprint is a struggle for African community economic and political power. It is against the system that is responsible for our poverty and powerlessness. It is this powerlessness that is responsible for the fact that the average household wealth for a white family is 22 times greater than the wealth of an average African household. It is the absence of power that is responsible for the huge gap in the lifespan of African and white people in the U.S. and in St. Louis. There are few African-created job opportunities in our community. We are confronted with massive decay of the housing stock that has been left unattended and which is difficult for the African population to acquire for shelter and industry. We are opposed to the idea that the best response to these conditions is some kind of welfare. We are convinced that the best approach to the development of our communities is self-determination, power in the hands of our community. We believe in reparations from white people to repair the historic theft of labor and resources from black people. These resources form the basis of social wealth inherited by generations of white people at our expense. We believe that reparations from white people is a positive stand that allows white people to join in genuine solidarity with African people and the majority of humanity. This approach differs from those who only focus on handouts. We believe that an equitable return of resources that goes directly into programs that provide collective economic empowerment is the best and just way forward. Even black elected officials are incapable of truly representing our communities because of the absence of an independent community economic base. This fact makes black politicians more susceptible to the wishes of white capitalists and big moneyed interests over the interest of our impoverished communities. The Black Power Blueprint allows for everyone, African people ourselves as well as our friends, to achieve a dignified success that upholds the integrity of our community and contributes to stabilizing development that serves black working people. As a consequence, this will benefit the entire city in 1,000 different ways. This is why we need Black Power Blueprint.
Before I continue, I really want to recognize Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, who went into St. Louis to carry out the vision of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and has been the spearhead for what is the Black Power Blueprint. So all of those amazing institutions that you see that exist today and that are, under construction right now to become a part of the liberated territory in the African working class community in St. Louis, that is because of Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela. So I just wanted to salute this comrade. The Uhuru movement fights for African people all around the world, from St. Petersburg, Florida, to occupied Tanzania or South Africa. And we don't just talk about it, we actually do the work, as exampled in the work of the Black Power Blueprint and our growth throughout the world. A part of that growth, we have the amazing Uhuru movement members in South Africa, like Comrade Tafari Mugere, the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, occupied Tanzania. We're going to hear from him tonight as he expresses the significance of the chairman at Oxford for African people everywhere. Uhuru.
Brothers and sisters, comrades and friends and supporters of the Uhuru movement and the African People's Socialist Party and the world at large, anyone who is watching, I am Comrade Tafara Mugeri, and I am the chair of the African People's Socialist Party, occupied Tanzania. As you know, the African People's Socialist Party exists in various countries as component organizations of the African People's Socialist Party. Of the African Socialist International, the international organization which is chaired by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I am going to talk about the Oxford debate, the debate that took place in the Oxford University at the Oxford Union that Chairman Omali Yeshitela participated in earlier this year. And that was the Africa debate on whether Africa should have a closer union or whether we should have a closer Union of Africa or Africa Union. The first thing that I want to say right now, so that we are clear on where we are, is that Chairman Omali Yeshitela is a revolutionary. He is not an academic or anything like that. He is a revolutionary, and that's how the world should see him. Wherever he speaks, they should see a revolutionary. And he's a leader of a revolutionary movement. He represents the oppressed. And I want to salute this great son of Africa, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has never given up on African people. Since the 1960s, he's been organizing and fighting for the self-determination of African people all over the world. So, like he said, that the question that was on the debate at the Oxford Union was not a purely academic question. It is a serious question for African people because we are oppressed, colonized all over the world. And his presence in that space, in that bourgeois space, that is part of the whole European tradition as the world hegemony, his presence, the presence of the Chairman Omali Yeshitela there was actually a representation, was for us to have a representative in that space for the oppressed. We felt that we were represented by Chairman Omali Yeshitela speaking in that platform. So that's the first thing that has to be clear about everything. I want to say that for us, as members of the Uhuru movement and also the members of the African nation, we want to say that the stance that Chairman Omali Yeshitela took in that debate meant for us that we have to take action ourselves. No one is going to come and save Africa, and African people are going to solve our own problems. And one thing that Chairman Omali Yeshitela highlighted that I feel, and we feel it is significant, is the fact that Europe is responsible for the condition that African people and Africa is in today. Africa is divided. They're talking about the Union of Africa or Africa Union because of a condition that was created by European people. So being in Europe, in an institution that represents European tradition and European interest, we feel that it was important and significant and actually showed principle and courage from our chairman to go there and tell it like it is. So it is clear for us. And another thing that I want to say is that imperialism, European imperialism, American imperialism oppresses all colonized people across the world. There are people in Latin America, people in Asia, all over the world that are oppressed by European people. And I am happy that the chairman went there and stood in solidarity with President Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela against European and American aggression. This is significant for us because we are revolutionaries. We are not trying to get favors from imperialism. We don't expect mercy from imperialism. We are going to organize ourselves. And another thing is that when the chairman was speaking there, one thing that has to be clear for everyone is the fact that when he took the position that we need a closer African Union, a closer unity of an African Union, he was not talking about this structure that is called the African Union today, that comprises of the neo-colonial states that we know today as South Africa, Chad, Congo, and so forth. He was talking about a United States of Africa, a socialist United States of Africa under the leadership of the African working class. And that is what he is working for, and that is why I am here in occupied Tanzania in South Africa saying what I am saying today, because we have to organize ourselves and destroy imperialism and unite Africa, not through some kind of union that respects the so-called sovereignty of Zimbabwe, of Nigeria, and so forth, that only serves to protect the interests of the bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie that oppress and exploit African people today. Another thing that I feel is important, that was very significant, that Chairman Omali Yeshitela managed to put out, even with all the restrictions with time and everything in that platform, was the fact that even today, Europe is sustaining itself to be this nice place that everyone wants to go to, and America and so forth, as this place that everybody dreams of, simply because they are exploiting Africa. They are bleeding Africa today. There's a quote that is very popular out there in the world by Chairman Omali Yeshitela that says that Africa is not poor, Africa is being looted. And the fact that in Europe, you have Google, you have Apple, you have all these gadgets, you have all this technology, even in China today, is because of the coltan in Congo, because of the mineral resources that are being stolen here in Africa. And everybody needs to know that. And this was actually a call, it was an opportunity for us to be in that platform. When I say us, I mean us through Chairman Omali Yeshitela. It was important for us to be there as the African nation, as the oppressed masses of the world, so that we can call for all oppressed people and all the progressive forces across the world to come and unite, for African people to come organize ourselves under the African Socialist International. Let's organize the African Socialist International. We are here in occupied Tanzania. We are the African People's Socialist occupied Tanzania. We have the African People's Socialist Party, USA, London, Kenya, and so forth. And we need this revolutionary organization that was founded by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, that is guided by revolutionary thinking and theory, to exist everywhere in the world, all over Africa. And African people, this is another significant thing. We are not some a people of nations like South Africa, Zimbabwe, USA, and so forth. We are one nation. We have one country, and that is Africa. That is our nation. We don't have any sub-nations or sub-states like that we recognize. We want these borders to be gone. We are a dispersed nation all over the world due to slavery and colonialism. And African people are in the USA, they're also Africans. And we are part of the same nation. And for white people, they need to join the Uhuru Solidarity movement and get organized under the leadership of the African working class. So I want to salute the chairman again and say, Uhuru, viva to the revolution, forward with the struggle, Uhuru.
Uhuru. And that is the work of 50 years of fighting that Chairman has done, has extended this struggle into Africa as represented by Comrade Tafari. So I really want to salute Comrade Tafari one more time. And now I'm excited, yes, Uhuru, salute to you, comrade. So I'm excited now to open up the screening of the documentary that was put together to highlight Chairman's presentation. If you have not seen it, you are about to have your mind blown. This is Chairman Omali Yeshitela at Oxford Union, the Africa Debate. Uhuru.
believe in my heart that the day that the black man takes an uncompromising step and realizes that he's within his rights, when his own freedom is being jeopardized, to use any means necessary to bring about his freedom or put a halt to that injustice, I don't think he'll be by himself.
On December 4th, 2018, the Oxford Union invited Chairman Omali Yeshitela to participate in the Oxford debates. The invitation read, "Dear Mr. Yeshitela, I hope this email finds you well. I am writing to extend an invitation to speak at the Oxford Union in our forthcoming term. Founded in 1823, the Oxford Union is the largest society at the University of Oxford and one of the most famous student societies in the world. In the past, we have hosted visits ranging from U.S. Presidents Reagan, Nixon, and Carter to Morgan Freeman and Malcolm X. Moreover, we are famous for debating the most important and pressing issues of the day, from a liberty and security debate last year to the King and Country debate of 1933. We would love for you to be a part of this tradition and speak on the motion, this House believes the left must reclaim populism. With a lifetime of fighting for freedom for African people, you are a globally inspiring champion for racial equality and socialism. Your vision has been crucial to shaping the theory of African internationalism and indeed the socialist movement worldwide. This timely debate would be hugely benefited by your irreplaceable perspective and input. The topic would later change to, should this House embrace an ever closer African Union? And the debate was themed, the Africa Debate.
It's because of young Africans right here in Ferguson who stood up.
Chairman Omali Yeshitela accepted the invitation, bringing the theory of African internationalism to the world stage.
I cannot stand before this august body without prefacing my statement in defense of closer unity of Africa, without stating first my unconditional solidarity with President Maduro and the government and people of Venezuela who are currently under attack, savage attack, by the declining world hegemony of the United States. I think it's absolutely necessary to say that coming from that country, and especially looking at the fact that the United States travels the world cleaning, presenting itself as the guardian of democracy and the rights of the peoples around the world, where the reality is that Africans who are colonized in the United States represent at least half of the largest prison population in the world. There are more Africans in prison in the United States than there are people in Djibouti or in Equatorial Guinea. And so we find it very difficult also recognizing that by their own estimates, it would take 228 years for the income of Africans colonized in the United States to equal that of the colonial white population. So it is absolutely necessary for me to stand here today before you, expressing total opposition to the United States government's terroristic actions against the people of Venezuela, with an attempt to starve the people into opposition to their government. Mr. President, brothers and sisters, comrades, it is also necessary for us to say that this question of a closer union with Africa, between Africans, or within Africa, is not a purely academic question, despite the fact that this debate has occurred within the pinnacle of bourgeois academia. That there is a natural, historical, for Africa and African people to be united, which is one of the reasons I am here today. The truth of the matter is that this discussion about the unity of Africa, union of Africans, started much earlier than any incursion, as it might be characterized, of China or the Trump administration into Africa. Reality is that Africa came under assault some 600 years ago when Portugal first came and captured African people and initiated a process that would begin capitalism and would establish and consolidate the identity of Europeans in the world. It is a reality that capitalism rests upon a foundation of African slavery. Africans were first capital. And in order for this to occur and to last, it was absolutely necessary to keep African people divided so that we could not resist this horrible incursion on Africa that continues up to now. I think it's important to be able to say that. I think that we have to say that we've seen example after example by African people to unite. We've seen what used to be warring tribes in this geographical terrain that we occupy at this moment, able to achieve a sense of sameness that people refer to as nations, founded on a common economy that came from slavery and colonialism. This is the basis of the unity that we see. If there is a problem with the European Union today, it is because the foundation, the economic foundation of capital, of imperialism, is being stressed by the struggles of the oppressed peoples of the world to take back their resources from this parasite that bleeds Africa, that bleeds the world, that bleeds Afghanistan, that bleeds the people of Yemen who are dying by the thousands as we have this discussion. This is the basis of a Brexit. It can't stand together anymore because the host is rejecting the parasite. And it's creating crisis throughout Europe and throughout the imperialist world. I think it's necessary, brothers and sisters, to say that there has been a natural trajectory by African people for closer union. We know that we're talking about having this discussion in part because in 1884-85, Europeans sat at a table in Berlin, Germany, not a single African there, and carved up Africa into the territories that we now sometimes call countries and illogically refer to as nations. Africans didn't do that. It was Europe that did that. It was Europe and imperialism that required Africa to be divided so that the resources of Africa, both human and material, could come and pave the streets in London and grow the buildings in Amsterdam and bring clean water to New York, while the streets in Sierra Leone are not paved, and the people in Sierra Leone do not have clean water, and there's no national electric grid there. It is necessary to keep Africa divided by European imperialism and by all the imperialism in order to continue to suck the resources from Africa so that cell phones could exist here, so that Steve Jobs and others could achieve some great notoriety from the coltan that comes from Congo, where Leopold killed at least 12 to 15 million Africans
the mistress who would become the wife of Frederick Lugard came up with the name nigger area. Not this false national consciousness that has been imposed on Africans around the world. So when the Portuguese found shrimp on West Africa and then named it for the Portuguese word for shrimp, Cameroon, it is not true that they are shrimp, despite the fact that the people call themselves Cameroonians today. It is a false national consciousness. The false national consciousness that created the American Negro, that created the Black Brit, the Afro-Swede. We are one Africa, one nation, and we must have close union. But in order for that to happen, it has to be a revolutionary union. The Organization of African Union, created on May 25th, 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, was part of an effort to circumvent efforts by Kwame Nkrumah to build a single union of African states. And instead of becoming an organization of African Union that codified the colonial borders that were created by Europe in 1884 and 85. We have to be able to break out of this, but it's going to take revolution in order to do this. African revolution in order to do this. African revolution that will destroy imperialism and the world economy that's responsible for the growing evisceration of the masses of people around the world.
Well, it was quite informative, as usual, on point. That definitely Africa needs revolution.
About anything else, but I guess that's what could be expected. You know, in the final analysis, the vote is taken by African people, and it's taken by the fact of union, by the fact that the African Socialist International does exist, and we're building in what they call South Africa, and building in Kenya, and building in Ghana, and building, you know, with Africans who are located in France and the United Kingdom and Germany and, you know, Belgium and throughout the United States and, you know, in the Caribbean. That is the actual occurrence of the revolutionary union that we're talking about, not this farce that came together after 1963, which was an attempt to block any kind of union, real union with Africa. We're talking about the union that Kwame Nkrumah talked about, but it can only occur through revolution. That means that the existing order has to be overthrown, destroyed, and the workers and the poor peasants have to come to power with their own revolutionary party. So we did what we could in 10 minutes. Yeah. What's that?
Actually, the debate was very inspiring in terms of history, in terms of culture, but also in terms of the challenges that are spreading the people of Africa across the Africa. I really enjoyed the quality of the debate and both the argument of opposition and those who want an ever closer union. It was beautiful.
I think it was a wonderful presentation. I think that what I especially enjoyed was the emphasis on the necessity of socialism as well as African unity. So it cannot just be, you know, a capitalist united system. It has to be socialist.
I was awestruck by the chairman's presentation, his argument and his address today. It wasn't an address that we come in to see at the union. It wasn't one that focused on the semantics or the nitty-gritties of the argument or the motion. It was one that called, you know, outright for a revolution, and the argument behind it followed that. It was a revolutionary logic, which I'm glad he brought to the union. Yeah, changed my views.
Uhuru, comrades, Uhuru brothers and sisters, I'm Loisi Kinshasa, the African Socialist International Secretary General. I would just like to talk quickly about the implication, the significance of historical Chairman Omali Yeshitela presentation at Oxford Union. So Chairman Omali Yeshitela presentation at the Oxford Union on the 24th of January was the voice of the African working class in alliance with poor peasants and all honest forces opposed to world's parasitic capitalist system against the white bourgeoisie and its ally of the African petty bourgeoisie. It was a war of ideas. That's what we saw. It was the recognition by the white ruling class that they have to contend with the rising philosophy of African internationalism. It was also the evidence that we all saw of the impossibility of the white bourgeoisie and the African petty bourgeoisie to win the philosophical battles against the African working class when it's equipped with the ideology of African internationalism. This is a new trend that we saw emerging in South Florida University a few years ago, where all the writings, all the books, all the work basically by Chairman Omali Yeshitela was assembled, collected, and stored in the South Florida University. And also, this is a new round of anti-colonial struggles, unlike in the 50s, the 60s, and 70s, when the struggle was led by the African petty bourgeoisie, when it used to be dynamic and progressive, but today the struggle for national liberation is led by the African working class under the leadership of the African Socialist International. And that's really important for people to understand what we saw on that day at the Oxford Union. The African petty bourgeoisie now is a reactionary social force. So it also was the struggle between the past and the future. And the future is basically a socialist revolution for a total liberation of Africa. It is an all African socialist governments, a unification basically of the African nation, all black people everywhere from around the planet being part of one nation, and Africa being the home. That's what we saw on that day. The leadership of the black working class for that historical mission. It was also the resurrection, the vindication of the unification project of the great Marcus Garvey and the late Kwame Nkrumah as the only answer to the daily national humiliation of black people everywhere by white imperialists and the new imperialists. What was also brilliant on that day, the chairman started his presentation by offering an unconditional solidarity to Maduro's Venezuela. And living here in the UK, you know, the government of the UK has refused to give back the gold of Venezuela people that was given to UK to look after. Now they're asking for that gold to go back. They refused to do so. So it was important of that solidarity. It also was the right place for anyone who was there to begin basically to put an end to the media slander on Africa, giving the correct causes of our global suffering, and also on the causes of the crisis, even here in the UK, to understand the Brexit, causes. If you follow the presidential chairman, you will understand it. It was also a call to the African students who were in the room to commit class suicide. To join the future in joining the African Revolution, which means join the African Socialist International, which is the union of all African people's socialist parties across the planet. It was also a call to white youth, to white students who voted amongst African students, I guess, for a closer unity, to win the vote against loose unity. Basically, it was a call to them to rejoin humanity by committing national suicide and be in solidarity with Black Power. So we are winning. Join the future. Join the African Revolution. Join the African Socialist International.
That's a great start.
Yeah. Well, I just think that this is one of the most important statements that you will find Marx would have made. The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. And the problem is that most of the communists and Marxists that we've known have only interpreted the world and have never engaged in changing it. And that's exactly what we're about, changing the world. And so if you have an interpretation of the world that doesn't contribute to changing it, it's worthless. And no matter how brilliant it may seem, it's worthless. That's what we say, that review philosophy, if it can't be something that is actually made material in the real world, it's worthless. That's just what distinguishes African internationalism, African People's Socialist Party. Yeah.
Unity of theory and practice.
Unity of theory and practice.
Hey, you, H-U-R-U, free. You, H-U-R-U, free. Check out Marcus Garvey. Check out John Henry Clark. Check out Steve Biko. Don't be left in the dark. Hey, you, H-U-R-U, free. You, H-U-R-U, free. Check out Omali Yeshitela, Rap Brown, Malcolm X, Robert Sobukwe, Che Guevara, and Penny Hess. Africa, my beginning and my ending. About to show you what we are before European expansion. Look, man, I'm RPG. I don't front. I pick up a brick if I'm gonna yell that any puppet president run. White power in black face. Got us filling up prisons, calling SA or Azania, but a black government this isn't. To stick a black man, the pigs need no reason. Black sellouts sold their souls to neo-colonialism. Hence, we gotta try, hence we gotta fight.
Uhuru, what a profound presentation from our chairman. Let's give that another round of applause. Uhuru. And as you saw, that was Comrade Secretary General of the African Socialist International, Luwezi Kinshasa, located in London. So for this next speaker, we thought it was really important tonight for this person to be here. She was present during this Oxford-London trip, and she has been present in this movement for over 40 years, chairing the party's organization, the African People's Solidarity Committee, the cadre organization of white people under the leadership of the African working class and its advanced detachment, organizing in the white community for reparations to the African Revolution as a genuine expression of solidarity with the struggle for black power. I want to introduce my comrade, APSC chairwoman, Penny Hess, to talk about this trip to Oxford. Uhuru.
Uhuru! Uhuru! I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela one more time. Wow! That was incredible. I want to thank Agitprop Director of the African People's Socialist Party, Akile Anai, and just say it's a great honor to be here today. And I just want to, be clear, because we saw it there, that the chairman won hands down. He won 2-1, voted for the chairman's position. The chairman electrified a room of 300 people, most of whom have never heard anything like this. He brought the truth of the African Revolution to the heart of the training ground for white power and colonialism, Oxford University. And I want to say, first of all, that it is an honor to be able to be here tonight. It was an honor to be able to be part of the solidarity movement's entourage, of the greater entourage of the Uhuru movement that accompanied the chairman on January 24th to the Oxford Union. Also, Comrade Janice Cant, also from the National Central Committee, the African People's Solidarity Committee, was with us, as well as Mark Anderson, a longtime supporter of the Uhuru movement from the San Francisco Bay Area. It was such an honor to be there. And I want to salute Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, who we saw was there, and who also leads and puts on the ground so much of the party's work on many, many fronts, but in particular on the economic front, which the African People's Socialist Party has over 50 institutions of economic development and projects, programs, organizations. There is no other organization like this on the planet Earth. I want to first introduce myself by saying that I have the honor of being the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and that is the organization of the African People's Socialist Party for white people to extend the African Revolution into the belly of the beast, into parasitic white power. That is our job. It is, of course, not the job of African people, African working class, or the African People's Socialist Party. It is our job to do that. And the thing that is so brilliant about the African People's Solidarity Committee as a part of the strategy of the African People's Socialist Party for African liberation is that it calls on white people to embrace the point of view, the world understanding of the African working class and the African Revolution as our own, to become African internationalists, which is what the political theory that the chairman was putting out in that video that we just saw, and to be that. This is not charity, it's not a favor, it's not an NGO, it's nothing like this. This is the ability of white people to be revolutionaries based on the fact that we are an organization of the African Revolution and that we work for reparations to African people, based on the understanding, as the chairman put out, that the entire capitalist system is built on the enslavement of African people, the theft of African resources, the theft of African labor, and on the colonization of the majority of the people on the planet Earth. So that's what the African People's Solidarity Committee is. I just wanted to say that, as we know, the Oxford University, as it was said in there, contacted the chairman, I think maybe in December or, not long ago, and asked him to participate in this debate as the preeminent proponent of African liberation and socialism in the world today. So, a lot of us are here in St. Pete, good old St. Pete, but the chairman walks among us. He is of the people, he is here. But, the thing that is so profound and so powerful about the chairman is that he had single-handedly fought for and rescued the African Revolution out of the jaws of defeat by the United States government, by COINTELPRO that assassinated, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, as we just saw. The chairman has fought for that, and that he is not just of St. Petersburg, Florida. He is of Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Freetown, Sierra Leone, Accra, Ghana, and many other places where there's organization of the African People's Socialist Party. The chairman has been there, he has spoken there, he has organized. And he has organization today. He is of London, Paris, Stockholm, Munich, Germany. He is known throughout Europe and New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, St. Louis, of course, and San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle, Portland, San Diego, you name it. The chairman has been there. He has built organization, and he has been single-handedly responsible for rebuilding the African Revolution. And it is a profound honor to have worked under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela for 42 years, which is when the African People's Solidarity Committee was organized by the African People's Socialist Party, and that happened right here in St. Petersburg. For whatever, however it happened, I was there. And once I heard Chairman Omali Yeshitela speak, I was completely politically ignorant, but I knew that this was the future, that what the chairman was laying out was science, that what he was saying would influence and shape the entire future of this planet. And we are seeing that now, even as the chairman has gone up against so much. So, obviously the Oxford Union recognized the chairman as the leading force of the African liberation movement. And, I want to echo a statement made by Tacharwa Masimba, one of the members of the African People's Socialist Party, who said, the white ruling class has finally caught up with the African working class. They recognize Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And, that it was in this debate, you didn't see the whole thing, but it just, went on and on with all these other people. There were 6 people debating, and there was the side that said, the side of what they call the side of the house, which means Oxford Union's position was that there should be a, quote, closer union of Africa, of the different so-called countries in Africa. And the other side was there should not be a closer union. So there were 3 on each side. The chairman was in the middle. So there were 2 people. So it would go the House position, what would you call it, the anti-House position, and then back and forth until they did it. So the first 2 speakers, one pro and one con, read their statements. They were like, nah, nah, nah. And it was like, what? It was so boring, frankly. And it had, it was just, it really, you couldn't even understand what they were saying. What in the world are they even talking about? So then chairman got up, as you saw, without notes, without a prepared presentation in that way, and electrified the room. So then everybody else, so then there were 3 other people after him, everybody else threw away their notes and got up there, and even though they knew that their notes weren't going to be any good at all now, and because the chairman destroyed the proposition that they were making, and as one of the students that I really appreciate on the video summed up, he introduced revolutionary logic. He got rid of this whole premise that was put forward from the point of view of the colonizer. I mean, England was the greatest colonizer, imperial country of the entire world, and colonized a huge percentage of Africa, which is still there under neocolonialism. So the chairman destroyed that premise and just brought in revolutionary logic, brought in the logic of the African working class, the reality. This is not a fantasy. This is not the narrative of colonialism. This was the narrative of the African working class and the ongoing struggle for African liberation and the demand for reparations and the ability to be free and liberated, and for imperialism to be destroyed. So, it was really, really powerful. What the chairman put out, it couldn't be refuted. So when others heard the chairman, as I said, they discarded their notes, but they had nothing to say whatsoever. And the only thing that they could acknowledge about the chairman, in a way, was that he was very passionate. But the thing is, he wasn't just passionate in an abstract way. He was passionate based on 50 years of struggle, of political analysis, of campaigns, of constant work, of building institutions, traveling the world, speaking, fighting on every front, building the Burning Spear newspaper, building the furniture stores and, you know, the Uhuru Foods and Pies and so many other things. So, you know, again, I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I mean, it was very, very historic. And, okay, I have 5 more minutes, and I would like to just say that, you know, all around the world, well, the chairman, first of all, the chairman always says when he speaks that he was born in a period when revolution was the main trend in the world. And that means the Chinese Revolution, Vietnam, Angola, Mozambique, everywhere, Cuba, India, Philippines, through the entire world, revolution was happening. And there were incredible revolutions. And as part of, you know, being under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, we have studied other revolutions, China, Vietnam, and what they did was unbelievable to see what they went through and the long march. They, you know, Chinese revolutionaries crossed the Himalayan mountains in sandals. They had nothing, you know, these incredible things. Vietnamese revolutionaries lived in tunnels, dug tunnels and lived in them for 10 years and fought 30 years of a war for their liberation. And, you know, that is so profound. But I want to say that they did live in the time and struggle in the time when revolution was the main trend. So there were counterinsurgencies obviously against the people of Vietnam, not only the war, but the Phoenix program, and so many other things. But there was still the sense that the entire world was winning. All the people were winning against imperialism. But Chairman Omali Yeshitela fought and struggled during a period when counterinsurgency, the war against oppressed peoples, was the main trend in the world in so many ways. And so I just want to say that the chairman is the one who analyzed the fact of the counterinsurgency, who survived this counterinsurgency, this war, COINTELPRO, on the African liberation movement, who exposed the fatal flaws of Marx and Lenin in a dialectical way, who proved that capitalism is parasitic, born on the backs of African people, and who continued to be an internationalist supporting all oppressed and colonized peoples, who proved that white people could be one under a principled relationship under the leadership of the African Revolution, and defined and won the question of reparations, which is now the mainstream, even the Democratic Party has picked up. That's due to the work of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who built the first International Tribunal on Reparations for African People in 1982 in New York City. So there's so much more I could say, and you know, I just want to say again that it's an honor to be under the leadership of the African Revolution, African People's Socialist Party, and Chairman Omali Yeshitela for 40 years. The party is winning, and unity through reparations. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. Uhuru. All right. It is now my honor to introduce the leader and founder of this magnificent organization, the African People's Socialist Party, and the Uhuru movement at large, the man who, despite every attack that has ever come against us as a people in our struggle for national liberation, never once wavered, never once threw in the towel, but has always kept fighting and has brought us to where we are now. He stood before the Oxford Union and declared that Europe and the whole white world is responsible for the division in Africa and amongst Africans today. He boldly proclaimed it is Europe and the US that is bleeding dry Africa and the world's resources for their benefit. He represented every poor and oppressed African community around the globe. He restored for us our dignity and our faith in the African Revolution. Let us all stand and welcome to the podium Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru!
Uhuru. Uhuru, comrades, brothers and sisters, I would really like to express my appreciation to everybody who has come out for this discussion on today. We want to talk about the Oxford Union debate that happened on January 24th in Oxford. It was an interesting experience for us, and it was historic in some ways. First of all, it was on December 9th, the anniversary of the U.S. government assassination of Fred Hampton, that we got the invitation from the Oxford Union. When I first saw it, I thought either that it was a mistake or that, you know, you get these email messages from all kind of phony accounts and what have you. So I saw it and I took it around and showed it to different people in the movement, and very suspicious of whether it was real. And then when I discovered that it was real, and we all united that it was something that we should do, we should accept the invitation, I was also concerned because of the character of the debate, how these debates happen in Oxford. They talked about having to have, the attire, the dress was going to be dinner, black tie dinner dress, right? So there was some real concern about that. We tossed that around for a while. In fact, one comrade in Houston, Texas, when I told him that, he said, "I'm glad you told me, because if I had seen you show up with that black tie on, I would have suspected you were kidnapped," right? But we debated that for a while, and it wasn't something that I was comfortable with. I actually rented a tuxedo to do this with, but it was still something that nagged at me. My wife, Comrade Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, she credits herself for having talked me out of but there was no way that I was going to wear that monkey suit there. So as you can see, I was the odd person out. And I just took some St. Pete African Uhuru swag into Oxford University. And so that was interesting. It was interesting because Oxford is the headquarters, has been for a very long time, in terms of training colonizers, from colonizers and then neo-colonial forces, the puppets who that they put in charge all around the world. One of the persons who was on that debate, he was an Oxford graduate, and he had been Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe. He had been the Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, and he was somebody debating against the position of Greater Union. He is the current leader of an organization called the Movement for Democratic Change in Zimbabwe. The Movement for Democratic Change in Zimbabwe was an organization created by white settlers. Zimbabwe used to be called Rhodesia, named for Cecil Rhodes, one of the most notorious butchers, white butchers of black people that's ever existed in history. And he is the one who, working in the interest of British imperialism, brought hundreds and thousands of white people to Rhodesia to help kill black people, and they could get land for killing black people to take the land. And in Zimbabwe, just not too long ago, Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, who was the president, the first president of independent Zimbabwe, after 20 years, actually moved to take the land that the whites had taken, to take the land and give it back to Africans. And this caused upset of the white countries and people all around the world. How dare these black people take this land from white people who took the land from the black people, right? And so, and this was a real concern, because when you look at Zimbabwe, that's just one place, but all over Africa, in places like Kenya today, the majority of the land, a huge portion of the land owned by white people. The same thing is true in Namibia. Used to be called Southwest Africa. White people own the land. And then, of course, in this place called South Africa, where you heard Comrade Tafari just speak from, in South Africa, you have a handful of white people who own something like 80-some-odd% of the land. They own land, they control land that is 4.5 times larger than England and Northern Ireland combined. And so this question of taking the land was a serious thing because they are concerned about what that could set off in terms of African people around the continent of Africa. So they created an organization. They sanctioned. Same thing they're doing today in Venezuela. They put economic sanctions on the country to starve the people so that the people then turn against the government, or they can set up the conditions to attack and overthrow the government. So what they did in Zimbabwe, created the sanctions, starved the people, created some unrest among the population as a consequence of doing that. Then they created a Negro organization. The white settlers did this, called the Movement for Democratic Change. And one of the persons who was arguing against me at Oxford was the current leader, president, head of the Movement for Democratic Change. So this is part of what it is that we were looking at. And one of the persons who was supposed to have been on my side was an African born in the United States. It was really interesting. He's arguing the same position. He was formerly the U.S. ambassador to the Organization of African Unity. And he is currently on some permanent committee on the United Nations. And the first statement that he made, and he had to say something to let the white folks know he was all right. The first statement he made was that even though he's supposed to be arguing on the same side, that he was a proud African American. He was proud to say that he was an African American. So he wanted to make it clear that he was African, that he was American. He's hyphenated. He's a hyphenated human, right? At the time where we are saying one Africa, one nation, he is making it clear to the white folk, I am a proud African American. He, by the way, was an Oxford graduate as well. So you're talking about the guy who was the former Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, Oxford graduate, the guy who, the African from the US who served as the ambassador to the Organization of African Unity, Oxford graduate. This is an institution that creates neo-colonial forces that white power can use to dominate the rest of us. That's what it does that, and then of course what it does is create ruling class. They educate forces from the ruling class to continue to dominate the whole world. That's what Oxford University is about. And so we're speaking at the Oxford Union now. And so I was concerned for a while because they set up these rules and they have this process through which the debate is supposed to occur. They call it a debate. And it made me a little nervous because I'm completely out of my element. I'm going to something where the rules of some kind of parliamentary rules of debate, one, that I'm supposed to wear a monkey suit, two, which is part of it. And then they say, you got only 10 minutes to make your position. We had 10 minutes. And then after the debate, what happens is that the students, the people who are there, vote on who won the debate, right? So I was a bit anxious, but you know, we had a few of our forces who were there, and that was helpful as well. And as you can see that I had no regard for the rules, threw them out the window. I didn't have the bow tie, the black tie, and all of that. You know, is that Reverend Coward back there? Oh, Reverend, I wish you were here earlier so that you could have seen the debate. Reverend Coward, I wanted to mention him because he leads an incredible organization in Polk County. And you may have read in the paper not too long ago about an 11-year-old African child, boy who had been arrested in Polk County because he dared to refuse to stand up for the pledge, and also because he said that the national anthem was an insult to black people. And so they called the police and arrested him. And Reverend Coward's group, the Poor and Minorities Justice Association, has taken that struggle on, and that's part of what attracted us to him. And then the other thing that attracted us to him, because he got some of the same problems with some of the same people in the African community that we have problems with too. So that's always a good indicator that you're in good company. But let me just say this, brothers and sisters. There are more stories that we could talk about in terms of how we got to Oxford, the struggles we had there. I was initially, I came to understand who I was with because they had this big dinner, right, where that we were invited to participate in, and the guests, the people who were going to be presenting were all at the dinner, and I'm sitting next to the former, the deputy prime minister of Zimbabwe, and he's an interesting character. And there are others in there as well, and so this interesting character begins to talk to me, and because he graduated from Oxford, you know. And and then he you know, I think he was at Harvard or Yale or some other place. He's just laying out all of these credentials to me, right? And then he wanted to know my credentials. Well, what about you, right? Because I'm one of the guys, because I'm there also, so I must have these same credentials, right? But my education was in the streets of St. Petersburg, Florida, among the African working class. You understand? And so, you know, I'm afraid I couldn't show him any sheepskin at all, right? So that was interesting. Just listening to him talk, and then listening to him also telling me that how he was going to treat the debate was that he really is for greater union. But he took the other side anyway, but he's going to argue in a way that's really tricky, et cetera. This is what he's saying, because you have to know how to play the game. That's what he's telling me, right? So I'm just listening to him telling me all of this stuff. And plus, they bring in booze. They bring, well, I don't think they call it booze. They call it wine. I call it booze. But they bring in, you know, wine, and this guy, he didn't drink, but some of the other persons who were the people who were invited, you know, they're piping oil, drinking wine and what have you before the thing. So now I got a sense of who I'm with, right? And so that was really helpful by the time we get to the debate. But I had made a determination already that we were not going to play the game the way they had established it. You can't do that. You can't ever win when you do that. You can't ever win when you do that. So we didn't. But I wanted to say something. That one of the reasons that we felt it was important is because we participated, I'm talking about Africans, in a revolution. And there have been various manifestations of this revolution happening all around the world. And revolution was necessary because what has happened to us and the conditions under which we are forced to exist in the world. And in the 1960s, it was the height of revolutionary struggle all over the world. Revolution was occurring in China. The Chinese Revolution had happened, but then you had the Cultural Revolution in China that was still influencing revolution everywhere else. Vietnam Revolution was happening. So in 1959, of course, the Cuban Revolution happened. Revolution was just spreading all over the earth. And in fact, it was a very heady period. And the Chinese used to talk about how revolution was the main trend in the entire world because the oppressed peoples around the world were rising up to fight back. And not only were we fighting back, we were talking about having a new kind of social system. We said capitalism is responsible for the conditions that we live in. It's a bloodthirsty, blood-sucking, oppressive, exploitative kind of social system that has no redeeming values. That's what revolutionary forces all around the world did that. And even Martin Luther King did that. And so what happened was a whole international counter-revolutionary movement occurred. So people who stood for revolution were being assassinated all around the world. They killed King, they killed Malcolm X. In 1968, they killed something like 30 members of the Black Panther Party. More than 300 of them were arrested. The co-founder of the African People's Socialist Party I was in jail so often, I had to read the newspaper to find out where I was. I mean, they made attack on the revolutionary movement everywhere. And then when they attacked, part of the attack on the revolutionary movement is what we call counterinsurgency. It's an art that has been created by oppressors. They have to create a science and an art.
in order to keep and oppress people down, because nobody will voluntarily work all day, work their lives off, and then volunteer their children and their progeny to a future of nothingness. Nobody would voluntarily do that. Nobody would voluntarily send their children to a school where you can't say, I will not pledge allegiance to the flag that flies over my oppression that itself was concentrated in the blood of African slaves. Nobody would voluntarily send their children to that kind of institution. Now, the truth is that the educational system in this country does more damage to black people in a day than crack cocaine did for the entirety of its existence in our community. Nobody would voluntarily send their children to that. It's only because the state, the colonial state, is always on us and forcing us to move in a certain direction that we do that. So they had to create a science to make that something that we live with. And it used all forms of warfare. Ideological warfare, psychological warfare, economic warfare, and then of course all of that is backed up by military force, by armed force in our communities. That's why, let's look at this. Here's a child, 11 years old, who says, I don't want to pledge. That's a profound ideological statement. He says because that this flag is oppressive to black people. I don't want to, the national anthem is an insult to black people. That's an ideological statement. He engages the school system in ideological struggle. The school system cannot debate him. He's 11 years old, but they do not have the ability to engage him in ideological struggle. So what do? They send the army, the police. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because they cannot deal with an ideological struggle. The truth they can't contend with the truth, so they have to have guns and military force. They have to have the ability to put you in jail, put your mama in jail, threaten your job, and do all those other things to keep you in line. That's the basic point that I want to make. So they have a science called counterinsurgency that works that out, that makes you, as Malcolm X used to say, love your enemies and hate your friends. You know, and that happens all the time, doesn't it, Reverend? You know what I'm talking about. In the newspaper, people are taught to hate the ones who are most involved in trying to end the misery that we live in. Slander, all kinds of stuff happens all the time. I don't know how many years and how long and how many different places I've been married to a white woman. And the thing about it is the ones who spread the rumors are integrationists. And the integrationists spread this kind of stuff about me because they assume that's going to hurt me in the African community. Right? So, but the defeat, the killing of Malcolm X was about more than just removing one person. Malcolm X spoke at the Oxford Union. And as he was about to leave, somebody was asking him, the people who were escorting him there, what do you see for the future? What's going to be happening? He said, I'll be dead. They're going to kill me. 2 months later, they killed Malcolm X. Because they couldn't contend with the argument, the whole question of pushing a philosophy that said black people have to be free, that we have to be self-determining, that we can control our own future. And more than that, we can say the way that this system got set up came at the expense of Africans and other oppressed peoples around the world. They killed Malcolm X. They killed him at a critical time in history because the civil rights movement itself was floundering. Malcolm X had split from the Nation of Islam that had cuffed them, that would not engage and struggle in the communities and what have you, as the people told him that you Muslims talk a lot, but you don't do nothing. And Malcolm X created the organization of Afro-American Unity that was designed to hook up with African people around the world to be free. And he was there. Why was he at Oxford Union? Because the people of the Oxford Union began to recognize a whole new defining trend of thought that was emerging in the African liberation movement. They have their own selfish interests for wanting to be on top of that question. This is a training thing for the ones who are going to be the rulers of the world. They need to know what Malcolm X is saying. They need to understand this trend that's emerging here at a time when Malcolm has left the Nation of Islam and clearly represented a whole new trend, a whole new tendency in the movement. So that's why Malcolm X was there. And the reason I was there is because we have gone now for more than 2 generations of a revolution that was defeated, that was relatively clear about what it stood for. If it was black power, it stood for that. Martin Luther King talking about a poor people's mobilization and what have you. This was a mobilization that was to organize, to empower the impoverished masses of the world. You got Martin Luther King on the one side talking about a poor people's mobilization that was going to shut down Washington, D.C., and then do everything necessary to raise up. And who had also said that America owes us. What did he say about the check that America owes us? And so you had this whole thing happening with King. Then you had Malcolm X, who is the forerunner of the Black Power movement. And they killed Malcolm too late because even after they killed Malcolm, you saw the rise of the Black Power movement in 1966. I was a part of that. I was busted right here. Malcolm X was living in the streets of St. Petersburg through that. You saw the rise of the Black Panther Party around the same time frame. But what has happened is that there's an ideological, philosophical foundation for the movement that you can identify with. People can say, I want to be with that, I want to be with that, etc. But for 2 generations, there has been no evidence for the masses of the people around this country and around the world, because they didn't just kill black people here. They butchered Patrice Lumumba in Congo, who was one of our greatest giants and champions, who you may not know anything about it, because our oppressors don't want you to know that Lumumba stood up for black people in Congo, talking about uniting all of Africa, etc. They overthrew Kwame Nkrumah in 1966 in Ghana, who was talking about the same thing. So the philosophical foundation of our movement was also what they were killing. They were not just killing human beings, but they were destroying the philosophical foundation of the movement. So now what you stand for? Well, I stand for blocking the interstate, because I'm mad as hell, and I won't take it no more, right? So I'm on blocking interstate, right? I stand up for this kind of thing. But where is that? To what end? Because your philosophy, what is philosophy anyway? Except something that defines your place and destiny in the planet Earth. That's what a philosophy is. It defines where you are and what your destiny is. And if you don't have a philosophy, you don't know where you're going instead of blocking the interstate, the police will help you block interstates. In fact, in Ferguson and St. Louis, Missouri, they have a career protesters who block interstates on a regular basis, and the police get there first, block the interstate, let them stand up in the interstate, and then say, keep a watch, and then say, okay, and then protesters move. So you block the interstate to what end? That's the fundamental question that we are confronted with. And philosophy helps you to understand to what end. And that's why it was important for us to be there. You know what? Because what you can do, I'm in my library, in my personal library, in my office, I got all of the works of Karl Marx. I've got all of the works of V.I. Lenin. I got works from the Vietnamese Revolution, right up there. And the thing that's so interesting about it is that, because everybody has a philosophy. Everybody, you got one. You might not know what it is, but the reality is everybody has a philosophy. But we live in a country where it is based on colonial domination, capitalism. It is the colonial capitalists that have worked, the educated sectors of the colonial capitalist population that's worked to create and develop and systematize philosophy. That's what you get. You get various representations of that philosophy in the movies. If you got an educated preacher, you get it from the educated preacher. You get it in so many different ways because they control most of the information that goes into the universities, that goes into the comic books, the movie strips, and all this other stuff that you see. It's grounded in philosophy. That's why you feel so depressed all the time. You don't know what is happening because it's working against you all the time. So the question of philosophy is really important. And I've recognized this for a long time. I used to be upset with Malcolm X for a long time. I said, Malcolm, you should have left us something more. And in the process of trying to make this revolution, because we came to that conclusion a long time ago, some of us finally said, if America had any intentions of letting black people be free, it wouldn't take 600 years, it wouldn't take 400 years. I mean, you know, if it was going to happen, you would think it would happen by last Thursday at least. You know, but the truth is that America cannot survive the emancipation of African people. And it has no intentions of doing that. So we had to, and we worked very seriously in trying to create a scientific assessment of our reality, and from that science, to create a philosophy that could show the interests of African people, the destiny of African people. And a real philosophy is not something that can simply talk about black people. It can't. We don't exist in some kind of vacuum. We're the only people on the planet Earth. We exist on a planet with all kinds of peoples and having different kinds of relationships to the same social system that has its origin in what? Slavery and colonialism. The system that we live in was born of enslaving black people and colonizing Africans and the peoples of the world. That's where it came from. So if you know where it came from, if you know what built it, if you know what sustains it, then you know what can break it down. You understand? So if you don't understand anything else on the planet Earth, that tells you why the United States government is doing what it's doing in Venezuela today. It's got nothing to do with some corrupt Venezuelan government. How in the hell can the American government call any government on the planet Earth corrupt? And by the way, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about Trump. You understand? Because people like to hold up Trump. Oh, look at Trump. Trump, nothing. George Washington. You understand? I'm talking about a social system. I'm talking about a social system that that has its origin, its foundation in enslaving black people. And that ought to piss you off. It should. And we're living in a world now where people walk around so proud and so arrogant. And especially the way they despise and slander the African working class who created everything, all the value that you see created by the African working class. And they treat us with nothing but contempt. Some Negro principal in this city at one time claimed that was actually expelling children because they came to school sagging. Boys come to school sagging. Oh yes, that's the real problem we got. That's the fundamental contradiction we are confronted with, young African boys sagging. That's the most ridiculous thing that you can be confronted with, but that's what the question of philosophy is so important. If you don't have your own revolutionary philosophy, what happens is we end up borrowing the philosophy of our oppressors. We end up borrowing the philosophy of our oppressors. And you wonder why you can't get out of this hole that we're in. Because we are informed, our practice, what we do is informed by the philosophy of our oppressors. So that's the work that we've done, a lot of. I mean, that's why I was invited to Oxford, because I've been writing, I've been struggling, I've been trying to sum up this reality and sum up what is happening with us, trying to carry the revolutionary project forward. Because there is no way out of this by simply talking about we fighting against racism. That is the silliest thing in the world. That's white people created that stuff. So you tell me, what is fighting against racism? It's something that keeps white people in the center. I'm fighting to make white people like me. That's what they're fighting racism is. I'm fighting to make white people like me. You can't hit them on the head with a brick. Because if you do, they won't like you. You understand? So you can't do nothing to upset the white people, right? Because then that allows them to continue to be racist. No, the salvation of white people, is for them to be able to end their voluntary isolation from the rest of humanity by uniting under the leadership of the Black Revolution to fight against and destroy white power once and forever. That's what salvation is. That's what salvation is. Well, somebody said, let's all get along together. No, we can't all get along together. There's no way the bank robber and the person with the money in the bank can get along well together. There's no way for the murderer and the murderee to get along well together. There's no long wait for you can't get along with a slave and a slave master cannot get along well together. If you get along well together, you're a slave, that's a slave master, something wrong with you. Counterinsurgency has been quite effective with you. You understand? So what has to happen is that this enslaved must be armed to the teeth. And what's critical about arming the enslaved is philosophy, how you understand the world. I'm going to say this and get out your way, because I've been given a signal some time ago, and I've actually acted without much discipline here. Because some of us have come to that conclusion, and more people are coming to the conclusion that revolution is necessary too. I just discovered, listen to the Democratic Party. They just discovered socialism. My goodness. And they would have you think that Bernie Sanders is a socialism. Bernie, where the hell were you? We've been fighting for socialism for so long. You weren't a socialist when we were talking about socialism, but what he calls socialism is something about $15, maybe after a period of time, $15 an hour. That's socialism? No, Bernie. No. No, what socialism is, where the producers of the wealth, the ones who produce the wealth, collectively own and control the wealth and the means of creating wealth. That's when the ruling class, when the working class becomes the ruling class. That's socialism. That is socialism. And guess what, Bernie? We might give you $15 an hour over a period of time once we come to power. You understand? And now they discovered reparations. There's this, the inside the Democratic Party talking about reparations. When we started doing reparations work, and the African People's Socialist Party is most responsible for reparations being on the agenda, period. We turned it into a mass demand, and brought the masses into this thing. When we started doing reparation work, they said we were a lunatic fringe. Reparations, people hold up reparations. No. You want us to be, we'd be crazy if we didn't say reparations. We'd be crazy if we didn't say we won't pay back for everything that you've taken from us. The lunatic fringe are those in our community who are opposed to reparations, right? And so now suddenly they've discovered reparations. Why have they discovered reparations? Because the crisis of the social system, the same thing that makes them discover socialism. They discovered so that they can take command of the definition of what it means. They discovered socialism because capitalism clearly is something that's killing people, destroying their ability to live all over the world and in this country as well. So now they discover socialism. They discover socialism because that's the alternative to capitalism. And so they want to control and define what socialism is. That's why they become socialists. That's why they're talking about inside the Democratic Party. Jesus was a socialist. Live like Jesus. That's what we want to do. Jesus was, and he was revolutionary too. I know they painted this weird picture of who he was supposed to be, but Jesus was fighting against Roman colonialism. You know, so that's right, Ray. I know you know that, Ray. You understand? And then the whole question of reparations. They want to turn the meaning of reparations into some new welfare poverty program. No. When we get reparations, because we've lived for so long in this world, in this country, and we've been defined as a group of people who've been living off the welfare of white people. But the reparations demand clarifies that. It shows that it's been white people who've been living off the reparations of black people for all this time. And when Africans understand this, it arms them. It gives them courage. It gives them the ability to go against our oppressors and stand up in the face of any judge who talks about, I'm sentencing you this or that because you stole something. How the hell could you accuse me of stealing something when I'm stolen myself? You understand? I am stolen myself. You understand? And so we talk about reparations going to unleash a revolutionary movement that will sweep imperialism and white power off the face of the planet Earth, and the human beings can then be free and can have a genuine relationship with each other without having to try to live in a world of slaves and slave masters and bosses and workers and the rest of that. So that's what it's about. That's what Oxford was about. That's what we took to Oxford. That's what we're taking to the world. That's why it was important for us to be at Oxford, so that we can say that there is a legitimate alternative philosophy that is contending for the leadership of African and other oppressed peoples around the world. And Oxford recognized that. That's why they would even have me coming from St. Petersburg, Florida, to Oxford, England, to participate in a debate on the Africa question. They did not the African-American question, as they like to put it, not the the Negro-American question, but the Africa question, because we have forced Africa onto the agenda. We have forced a recognition that there is only one Africa and one nation, and that's us, an African nation that's been forcibly dispersed around the world. We have told everybody, and now more people are beginning to understand that I can't get on a boat in Africa as an African in 1619 and then get off as Jamestown, Virginia as a Negro. If I was an African when I got on the damn boat in Africa, I was an African when I got off the boat. I was an African then, I'm an African now. Uhuru.
Uhuru, what an amazing presentation by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Thank you, Uhuru. So we can all collectively agree that this has been an amazing event, right? Uhuru. Uhuru. And it's not over yet. We still have a very intimate discussion we want to have with the chairman. And this is your time now to participate, a part of this program. I want to call on every single one of you here tonight because we have an $1,000 fundraising goal to meet this evening. And I think in this room, we definitely got it. In fact, we could probably exceed it. So $1,000. And I'm going to tell you why you should contribute. But first, I want to let people know that if you contribute $100 or more to this fundraising goal tonight, you will get a signed poster, one of these beautiful posters by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. You'll get a signed poster, autograph poster. So $100 or more contribution for one of these autograph posters from the chairman. It is going to, well, it already is worth so much already over here. And just as we further this, and this goes down in history, this to be framed on your wall, an autograph from the chairman. So I want to tell you why you should contribute. The presentation that Chairman made at Oxford, even the presentation we just heard him make right here, needs to be heard by our people everywhere. Every single place, every corner of the earth needs to hear Chairman Omali Yeshitela, needs to experience African internationalism. Nowhere on the planet do you hear talks about African revolution. And if you hear the discussion happening, like Chairman said about reparations, about anything like African revolution, it's because the chairman and the African People's Socialist Party forced it onto the agenda, forced it into the discussion. Nowhere on earth can you find these types of discussions that we're having in the Uhuru House. No place in St. Pete. You can't walk into another business here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and hear what Chairman Omali Yeshitela just said. You can't find it. You walk out of your house, you go into your job, you drop your child off at these schools, where all we can hear are the same old lies about our people, our community, and what's happening in the world. We have no idea. We have no idea because the bourgeoisie constantly pushes lies into us every single waking moment of our lives. That's called the war of ideas. And for some of us, it's a war we don't even know is being waged. From the thoughts that's in our heads when we wake up to those that lull us to sleep. These are all ideas that keep us locked into this system, continues making us subservient to capitalism and never looking for the solution, which is African revolution. So we have to support institutions that are doing just the opposite, that is informing our people of what is really going on in the world and saying what is needed to be done. This event is being hosted by Burning Spear Media. We can fight back in this war of ideas. We can unite our entire community, win the demands that will uplift our community when we support the instruments that allow our people to do these things. That's what the Department of Agitation and Propaganda for the party does on a daily basis. It's the department that I'm over, that oversees something like our 50-year-old institution, like the Burning Spear newspaper. If you saw it coming in, this edition right now, actually, the front cover covers the whole thing about Oxford, and in it, the point of the spear, which is Chairman's column, it's a whole transcription of his speech. You can only find that in the pages of the Burning Spear newspaper. And through our books, all of these books, oh, let me tell you about the deals we have going on today, because you guys will definitely want to be over here. And just want to salute the chairman and, you know, for writing our newest, latest book that you can see displayed here, Vanguard, The Advanced Attachment of the African Revolution, which is the political report to the 7th Congress. It has been in the press, and it'll be here in y'all's hand if you order March 18th. So really excited about that. We have some amazing deals going on right now. You can get an Uneasy Equilibrium and quotations from Chairman Omali Yeshitela for only $35. You can get our package 2, which is the Vanguard pre-order. You can get your pre-order, which features a signed copy by the chairman, an Uneasy Equilibrium, and a quotations from the chairman, quotations from Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And then our package 3 has Vanguard, Uneasy Equilibrium, quotations, his book, One Africa, One Nation, Omali Yeshitela Speaks, and Why I Became Revolutionary for only $100. So those are our deals today. And that's what our department oversees, the production of all these books, our DVDs, our buttons, our flags, and our radio station. You live, y'all from St. Petersburg, Florida, but anywhere around the planet, you can access Black Power 96.3 FM, the baddest radio station on the planet Earth that airs speeches from Chairman Omali Yeshitela, as well as music from African people all around the world. And we also have our new archiving project that we just launched, which is responsible for digitizing and making accessible to the world our movement's glorious history. People have to know about the history that the party led around this question of reparations. That the question of reparations did not just pop up one day in the Democratic Party and they said, you know what, we need to give black people some reparations in the form of baby bonds, $50,000 over a lifetime. That is not what happened. Reparations, through the tireless work of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party, traveling the world, forced this question onto the agenda today. Our people have to have access to their own history, and that is what we provide, which is why you have to contribute. So raise your hand if you have not received a pledge card. They were at the table. The pledge card comes in a little envelope. We have Cameron, our lovely Cameron, is going to be handing out pledge cards. If you don't have one, please raise your hand. Want to make sure that you get those. And for everybody who's tuning in on the live stream right now, we're broadcasting from our Burning Spear TV YouTube page as well as our Facebook page. And you can donate at theburningspear.com/donate. And everyone, please get your pledge cards. So on that pledge card, you can say how much you can contribute to this $1,000 goal. $1,000 is, you know, a lot to our community, but it's very little in terms of what it is that the bourgeoisie is able to rake in every single day from the work it is that we do. And so we have to bring our resources and pour them into our own institutions that uplift our community. So I know this $1,000 goal is reachable because you all were inspired by what you heard today. I know every one of us in this room, we were deeply moved by the chairman's presentation, and our ability to put this out in a society that doesn't want it out is reliant upon your support. So who was able to contribute to this goal? I do want to see people enthusiastic, raising your hand, say how much you can pledge. I want to ask first, does anybody have $1,000 in the room? That's a real question because some people have $1,000 just on them, chilling. $1,000. All right, that's fine. Nothing is too big, of course, and nothing is too small. Everything counts, and it will be greatly appreciated. So let's support these institutions that uplift the voice of our community, the African working class. So who can make our first contribution today? I want to say that we did have 2 donations already come in. One person already left. His name was John, Uhuru Solidarity, and he donated $20 today to our goal. So Uhuru. All right, so who wants to match John, go over John? Uhuru. Huh? That is in Tomboy Bekazito with 200 on it. Uhuru. That's also my father. Uhuru. Miss Kickladder? Uhuru. 100 from Miss Kickladder. Uhuru. Uhuru, thank you so much. All right, let's keep it coming. I mean, unless you want to be anonymous, then we'll go back and we'll count it. It's fine. May not want everybody to know what you got. Uhuru. So. Oh, and also, yeah, get online. We want to announce your donation, so theburningspear.com/donate, and go ahead and put in the chat section how much you're going to contribute to this event tonight. Anybody else in the room for our $1,000 goal? All right, so we have $100 from APSC, and then we have you said $20? $25 from Comrade Penny Hess. Uhuru. Uhuru. $50 from Janice Kant. Uhuru. $30 from Comrade Renee. Uhuru. $50 from Jesse Neville, the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Uhuru. And could you announce your name too when you, yes. $25 monthly, sustainer, Uhuru. Uhuru. And what's your name, sister, for the live stream? Uhuru. What's your name for the live stream? Elaine. Elaine just donated. She went on the cruise with us, the Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise, which we'll be talking about later. Uhuru. All right. Anybody else? I know it's out there. Look, we just heard this amazing presentation. We said we have to put it out into the world. You have institutions to support, like our radio station, our newspaper, our books, and everything it is that we produce, put out into the world. Uhuru? Uhuru, 25 from Janet. Uhuru. We have online. You want to bring it up to me? Oh, did you send it to my phone? Okay. We have Comrade Diane Batiste from Costa Rica with $100. Uhuru. Uhuru, Diane. Member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Uhuru. 10 from Jackson. Uhuru. Thank you. Uhuru. Anyone else in the room? Where are we at now, Amanda? Oh, you okay, Amanda's calculating. 20 from Curtis Sykes. Oh, Uhuru. I didn't even see him walk out. Uhuru, thank you, Curtis. Uhuru. We have Comrade Rose Latoul from Oakland, California, or the Uhuru Solidarity Movement with $25. Uhuru Rose, watching on the live. Uhuru. Uhuru. 200 from Kenya. Uhuru. Uhuru. Yeah, if you have card, you want to come see me after this, I will come. Well, actually, I'll come up to you. If you have a card, oh, Ikinge got it? Oh, okay, never mind. Go up to Ikinge, this table right here with all the book deals as well. You can go right over here if you have a card. We have $50 from Comrade Chirwaniso, located in Houston, Texas. Uhuru Chiwo. Uhuru. Uhuru. We got a total yet? Or are you still counting? All right. I like still counting. That's good. That's good. All right, so that means Comrade Ntambwe gets a poster. Comrade Kenya gets a poster. Diane Batiste gets a poster. Oh, thank you. Oh, okay, sweet. All right, comrades. Well, this is nice. We raised $1,285. Uhuru. We have someone on the live, DX, I guess that's their name. DX, who is donating $25. Uhuru, the DX. Uhuru. The D stands for donate. Allison Haney says $100. Uhuru. In Philadelphia. Uhuru. Works in the Uhuru furniture store in Philadelphia. Uhuru. All right, that means Allie gets a signed poster. It's not too late to get a signed poster. We got some up here, $100 or more, and you get it. All right, well, is there anything else? Look, I am still taking, okay? We can go, we can do this, okay? All right, so, oh, we have Lisa Watson with $100 out in Minnesota. Uhuru! Wow, it just keeps growing. Okay, so I don't want to take up too much time because we do want to open it up for discussion now with the chairman. So we have exceeded our goal, but I will announce the new total. And again, if you want to keep giving on the live, theburningspear.com/donate, keep saying how much you want to donate, and we will announce our total by the end of this evening. So thank you all so much for your contributions. Just want to give you all a big uhuru. You have supported the institutions that is going to take this debate at Oxford and everything else that the chairman and the African People's Socialist Party is doing out into the world. Uhuru. All right, so now I know you all are, antsy with questions. You really want to talk to the chairman, really get to understand Oxford and, just everything else that's on your mind, any questions or discussion that you want to have. I want to bring up Chairman to our couch, our top couch. And all the questions, you can come around if you're, you can come around and come to the mic up here and stand right before the chairman. And go ahead and ask your questions. He wants to say something to the chairman. So. We're getting this, right, on the live? Uhuru.
It's my nephew and my little children there. They what does that make them? If that's my nephew and their children would be what? Some great what? Great nephew. Okay. And my daughter is back there also. My sister was here a moment ago, and it's good to see her. And I'm glad to see Sister Lynn Johnson, the owner of the Weekly Challenger, is here, and she's really transformed the Weekly Challenger. You may be too young to know what it was and how it has been transformed, but it's really good to see what is happening with it, and there is an independent source for African news in this community. If you get it to her, generally speaking, it can get out there. So glad to see you. Uhuru. So, anything, brothers and sisters, comrades? Check my mic. Okay.
Uhuru.
You have to raise something with me, otherwise I'll bore you to death. Anybody? Good Reverend Coward? Reverend Coward is doing incredible work over in New Haven, Polk County, Lakeland area. Uhuru. This sister, didn't she do it? I mean, yeah. Well, you can call me that, but I don't trust fathers as much as I do revolutionaries, but I'll be Baba. Okay.
I was wondering, when you travel to Africa, is there anything specifically that the Uhuru movement or the African Socialist Party does for the youth in Africa, or does it specifically cater to the rebuilding of the communities there?
Yeah, the communities. I mean, like our youth program is revolution, and I'm not being facetious when I say that. For example, you remember the Ebola crisis in Sierra Leone, right? Where we played a really important role in Sierra Leone with the Ebola crisis. on the ground there. And we have traveled to schools of all sorts, South Africa, Namibia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and what have you. In fact, so there's no specific youth program, I don't think, that we can, except for what the comrades in the party, for example, it's not like we take something to Africa from here, except organization, ideology, philosophy. The organization is being built on the ground on the continent. That's true in South Africa and other places where we're located. So they will have programs for the youth in those, but it's not something that we extend from here to there. What we do is take a revolutionary organization and program there. Yeah.
And how often do you all travel to Africa, and how can other people travel with you all?
Oh, that's a great question. It's infrequent now. That is to say, it doesn't happen with the regularity that it used to. I mean, we could know a while ago that we were going to be in Africa once or twice a year as a group or something like that. I was last in Africa, was it May? Was it May of last year? In Ghana, and then in South Africa. In fact, my brother was married in Ghana May of last year, and he still can't get his wife here, because of the visa restrictions they have on African people, who are trying to get here from Africa. But when we travel to places like South Africa and other places, we welcome participation and Africans traveling with us. We go there usually for some kind of work of some sort, some kind of participation in the movement. But we welcome that. We call on African people to participate with us in that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I want to be on the next trip, just letting you know, okay?
How's that?
Said I want to be on the next trip, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, splendid.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody? Let me just say that this is where the boredom comes in. I will stop when I see your eyes begin to roll in the back of your head and an obvious desire to make a mad dash for the door. I just want to say that this whole question of revolution is critical for us. That there is not going to be a voluntary liberation of African people. The American cannot do it. The government cannot do it. I mean, we live in a world today where the whole political and economic configuration of on the globe comes about as a consequence of slavery and colonialism, and that different kinds of systems have been put in place, structures, to maintain this relationship that the oppressed have with imperialism. And that's what you look at. When you look at NATO, North American Treaty Organization, even this thing that people like to hold up as this wonderful institution called the United Nations. United Nations, which the precursor of which was the League of Nations. The League of Nations was born out of the first imperialist world war to divide the world. That's what that war was for. And then the second, the so-called World War II, it's like when mafiosos get together and every now and then they have to have a fight because they're not satisfied with the share they got the last time out. That's what the World War II was fought for. It was another war to redivide the world. After the League of Nations, in an attempt to make it unnecessary for white powers to fight each other like they did in the First World War, after the League of Nations, after the First World War, the US president tried to organize a League of Nations. Who was the president? That was Wilson, wasn't it? What was this guy's name? Who was the president at the time? Say it again. Come on, it was Wilson, wasn't it? Woodrow Wilson initiated this thing to build the League of Nations. And again, it was to be this organization that would allow the colonial powers, the imperialist powers, to debate among each other, and so they wouldn't have to fight each other over the colonial booty. The League of Nations didn't take because the United States didn't participate, because although Woodrow Wilson was the president who pushed it, the US Congress, for any number of reasons, refused to go forward with the League of Nations. So it was not what it should have been as far as the imperialists were concerned. After the Second World War, the United States pushed for and created the United Nations. The United Nations, like the League of Nations, is supposed to be an organization for peace. And they were organizations for peace, but not the way we've come to understand them. They were supposed to be peace among the imperialists. That's why if you look at the undemocratic structure of the United Nations, where the majority of the people don't have the ability to determine what's going to happen, initially it was only a handful of white countries that could veto anything that was put forward. They had complete control. Now I think China might be one of the countries, and Russia is one of the countries that can that have a veto, but the vast majority of people who are part of the assembly, they have no power at all. They can talk, they can debate, but they have no power. And that's because that's what this system was created for. This is one of the institutions that was created to maintain this relationship of the oppressed and the oppressors. And if they can trap people into functioning solely within these institutions and structures that they create, they can be guaranteed that they will be in power forever. And to the extent that African people believe that the only legitimate way to come to power is through the electoral process, we will be slaves forever. The fact is that the electoral process itself has been created as an institution that allows for a nonviolent contest between contending sectors of the ruling class for control of the state to their own profit-making advantage. That's what it's for. It is not for the purpose of bringing freedom to anybody on earth. There's occasionally some disruption, like what we see with Ocasio-Cortez, I think her name is, in New York. Like we see with the sister it was really interesting. Where is Ocasio from? Where is she from? Puerto Rico, right? I mean, that's where her family, her history is. Puerto Rico, a colony. And then you have this woman, Ilhan Omar. Where is she from? Somalia, where the U.S. has engaged in sweeping wars and to control the people, et cetera. So you see their intervention in the U.S. Congress creating some kind of stir. But the institutions were not created for the purpose of bringing freedom to anybody. It's a means for nonviolent contest. It's a way to keep the struggle from ever going beyond the safe embrace of the social system itself. And that's why even now you hear this discussion about reparations and socialism, so that now the assumption is that you can find socialism and reparations within the system that enslaved us and made it necessary, created capitalism and the system that made reparations necessary. So I just want to say that this whole question of revolution is so critical, because we will not be free as a people unless we do that. What happens is the system will allow us to succeed as individuals. You can succeed as an individual. This is why some of the people who taught me are so upset with me, because you can be anything you want to be, boy. You can be, as an individual, I could succeed. But part of our culture is that this is what we are often denounced for, is we are a collective people. And the thing is that I can't succeed at the expense of the other African people. And this is what is offered us as individuals. You can succeed as an individual, but they will not allow the group to succeed. And I will not accept success at the expense of the group, right? And that's what our politics is all about, right? And I want to finally say, if we talk about reparations, revolution, it's really important to understand that there are criteria for making revolution. And what are the criteria? One, the system has to be in crisis. You can't make a revolution unless the system is in crisis. Two, the people will have to have concluded that even death is better than living under these conditions. You've seen situations where people actually fought tanks with rocks, and you saw something akin to that in Ferguson in August of 2014. It wasn't generalized, but you see that happen. Three, the ruling class must be incapable of ruling in the same old way. And that is something that prevails today. The ruling class cannot rule in the same way. That's why it was necessary for an Obama. That's why you see the various means, lengths to which they have to go in order to try to hold on to power. And then 4, in order to make revolution, one must have a revolutionary party that's guided by advanced revolutionary theory. And that's why this question of theory is so important to us, and it's something that many forces do not understand, but it will prove to be a vital thing, and they understood that in Oxford, and that's how I happened to be there. So anyway.
For real, Chairman. Oh, I'm up here. All right, so like I said, we are live streaming from Burning Spirit TV, YouTube, and Facebook. Comrade Tafari Mugere said, Chairman Omali for the oppressed, Africa for Africans, those at home and those abroad, all power to the people. And on behalf of the APSP Occupied Azania, I want to salute our chairman and all those who made this event possible. Uhuru Sasa. Uhuru.
That's Tafari in what they call South Africa. He's the leader of our party there.
Uhuru. And then we had Kaya La from the American colony of the Virgin Islands, donated $100 tonight. Uhuru. They asked if they could get a signed poster, even if they're not here. Yes. We will mail it to you. And they said, okay, thanks. Only remaining question on this end is where the chairman got that damn shirt from the poster.
Who is that from?
That is from Kayala in Virgin Islands. Yeah. And then we had a question from Morty from Richmond, Virginia. Ask, Uhuru Chairman, could you make an intervention and speak on the ADOS movement, which seeks to split American descendants of slaves from the rest of the global African nation?
Yeah, the division of African people is a critical thing. That's why it was so important for Oxford as well, because there's ongoing efforts being made to keep African people divided, 1,000 different ways, 1,000 different means of dividing us thrown in our midst all the time. And there's now, you know, they've created this thing that's called, what is it called? The American descendants of slaves. It's really interesting because in Ghana, there are Africans who came from this country, who live in Ghana, in West Africa. Some of them live for 20, 30 years or more. But they live together. They call themselves the African American tribe to distinguish themselves from the rest of African people on the continent in Ghana itself. We saw a similar situation where Africans left this country and went into Liberia, where the imperialists here created this entity called Liberia that was supposed to be for freed African slaves. And they got to Africa, and in this place in West Africa, and they created, in West Africa, the rulers became the Africans who came directly from here. They call themselves Americo-Liberians, right? And they dominate the other African people who are there. They have actually built houses, structured, looking like plantations, what do you call it, antebellum houses that that slave owners had here in the South. And they oppressed and exploited Africans who were born there. So and then you saw this insane movie, and I know that I'm going to get in trouble with you, called The Black Panther, which had nothing to do with any Black Panther that ever existed on the planet Earth, not the ones in the jungles and not the ones in Oakland, California. It was a farce that had the CIA as some kind of heroic figure helping people, when the CIA's role in Africa, as everybody knows, has been to assassinate, undermine, overthrow, and do everything it can to destroy African liberation and create this notion of the special magical kind of place in Africa that nobody knows about, no reason you don't know about it because it doesn't exist, called Wakanda. I mean, it's just an extraordinary farce, but this is part of, and then the Africans, they create this false contradiction between Africans in Africa and Africans who are in the United States, right? And so there's this false contradiction that they create. They create this. They work overtime to keep Africans divided, and now you have this African American, some kind of descendants of slaves that now, who are concerned because they don't want the other Africans or the Africans from the continent to get our reparations. that you couldn't be talking about reparations if Africa hadn't been attacked. The reason you can talk about reparations is because Africa itself came under assault. That's how your black booty got here. You know, it's because Africa came under attack. So you can't lose by African people anywhere on the planet Earth getting reparations, and that's just something that's being devised to separate Africans and to weaken our struggle and our movement. Uhuru.
Uhuru Comrade.
Uhuru Comrade.
My name is Mtambwe. And I just want to express my profound appreciation for just the party itself and its ability to put the question of reparations on the agenda, you know, around the world, and bring the party to Oxford University, where Malcolm spoke. Because that is some serious history that was made by the party. Understand the chairman came and he represented and put down. I really want to just touch on like what you spoke about philosophy. Because if, like you said, if you don't have a philosophy, you'll wind up adopting, you know, the philosophy of somebody else. And we understand that the imperialists, their philosophy is to control and maintain the relationship of oppressing everything that exists on the damn planet Earth. So my name, Mtambwe, I got that name. It was awarded to me by you, and that's something too. That means a whole lot to me. And Secretary General of the ASI, Louise Kinshasa. Philosophy. Names are important. Yeah. What you think is everything. Yeah. I was born Bruce. Yeah. And if you didn't, you know, if you read it on the paper and then saw me walk in the building, you would think I was crazy. Because what black man named Bruce? Well, you can find that name probably somewhere in London. But as an African, understanding that I am an African, and what African internationalism brings to me is that it lets me know, it identifies my material relationship to this social system, which allows me to be able to accept without any type of struggle that I am Mtambwe now. That's my name. It means something. Like Bruce don't mean nothing. That was a safe name my mama named me because she knows a little black boy trying to, you know, raise up in this system that she understood was gonna kill his ass, you know. And if it wasn't for African internationalism, I would be dead. I say that, you know, because everything, you know, every day we struggle with idealism. Every day we struggle. We got to go to these schools, we got to go to these jobs, and you know, for the most part, most of us don't even know why we so upset. Why you know, why you come home and you take it out on your family, all that other kind of stuff. You don't know why. Hey, you've been ripped of identity. You've been ripped of purpose. And our purpose right now, our job is to fight for our own liberation, to free Africa and African people, because it is your birthright. For anybody in here who may consider themselves a Negro, an African American, an American, a Jamaican, a Haitian, or any other thing that was created through this relationship of slavery and colonialism, we have to understand that. Because when I see someone who may speak with a little bit of, you know, dialect like this, that's an African too. You understand? Just like me. So I can unite with that. And African internationalism did that for me. You know, it's freedom. Uhuru.
That beard works too, comrade. Uhuru. So.
Uhuru. I really want to appreciate everybody who participated in this discussion. Just one more round of applause. Thank you, Chairman Uhuru. And we are at the end of our program. And, you know, I know that we want to continue this discussion. I know that there are so many comments on the live stream. And just know that we will respond with you. We will make sure that the chairman sees your question and that you don't leave here with any questions unanswered. Also want to acknowledge Matsimela on Facebook who donated $100. Matsimela, if you are hear my voice right now, please let us know where you are from. Uhuru. All right, so I want to, you know, like I said, appreciate everybody a part of this discussion, everyone for attending tonight. And we are at the end of our program, but our movement is on the move, and we wanted to let you know some things that are up and coming for you to attend and be a part of. We have our announcements. So, like I mentioned earlier, Black Power 96, you can hear it all around the world, based right here in St. Petersburg, Florida. It's accessible via the Black Power 96 app or online at blackpower96.org. So, and you guys can actually come see for yourself the radio station. And if you united with what you heard today, if you're on the live, if you're in this room, united with what you heard today, unite with African internationalism and the work that the party is doing around the world, you can join the African People's Socialist Party. And we have our join table right at the front. You saw Cameron when you came through the door. We have Comrade David Lance, who is our newly appointed director of the National Office of Recruitment and Membership for the party. So if you have any interest in joining this organization that is on the move, please go to that front table, talk to David. If you're online, go to apspuhuru.org, sign up today. And you can join Uhuru Foods in St. Petersburg, Florida every week at the Saturday morning market for delicious breakfast wraps, bowls, jerk, and vegan jerk wraps, and more. Many flavors of Uhuru pies in 9-inch to 6-inch personal size and slices are also at the market on select Saturdays and at the Uhuru House on Fridays. You can volunteer or come eat with the Uhuru Foods and Pies in the Rowdy Stadium parking lot located at 230 1st Street South in St. Petersburg, Florida. If you want to get involved today, Janice, you want to raise your hand? Right there, our Uhuru Foods and Pies coordinator right there. You can call 888-519-4022 or check out uhurufoods.org, for menu, pie dates, or to sign up and volunteer. On March 23rd to 24th, and we are traveling a contingent out of, St. Petersburg, Florida, and going to St. Louis, Missouri, to be at the house that Black built, a part of the Black Power Blueprint, the Uhuru House, to participate in the African National Women's Organization National Plenary. And that's ANWO. African women's role in the revolution is on the front lines, and ANWO helps us to understand this by showing its tremendous leadership of African women. ANWO is an organization under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, founded by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So visit anwohuru.org to learn more about this event. If you want to travel with us from St. Petersburg to St. Louis, you can also talk to David. We are organizing this trip, and there's also going to be a meeting upcoming this week for all those who want to attend. So Uhuru David's right at the table. April 6th and 7th, we talked about this whole reparations demand and how it's, the Democratic Party candidates are trying to take it for themselves. Well, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations will be conducting its 3rd electoral campaign school in St. Petersburg, Florida, right here. You can learn how to run for office on a revolutionary platform such as the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination that calls for reparations. And, you'll hear from speakers like Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Black is Back Coalition Steering Committee. And you want to register, you can do so right here. You can see Comrade Timba or go to blackisbackcoalition.org. The movement for white... And we won an election in St. Louis, which we're celebrating right now. Uhuru salute to Jesse Todd, Uhuru, who won the 18th ward in St. Louis for the Black community, the People's Alderman, Uhuru. So, Illinois, Uhuru, Comrade Wanda's coming for it. All right, and the movement for white solidarity with Black Power is growing. Witness it at the Uhuru Solidarity National Convention, April 13th and 14th in St. Louis. You can come see the growth of the white reparations to African people and learn the role that white people can play in creating a future free of oppression. You can visit uhurusolidarity.org to learn more about this convention. And as mentioned, you can order your copy of Chairman Omali Yeshitela's latest book, Vanguard, The Advanced Attachment of the African Revolution. You see that beautiful book right there. You can do that at burningspearmarketplace.com. You can do that today in this room. And this book is the political report to the 7th Congress and features a foreword from ASI Secretary General Loezi Kinshasa, as well as international solidarity statements from anti-colonial, anti-imperialist organizations existing all around the world. So check us out for your pre-order, also for all of the book deals we got going on right now. And you can book Chairman Omali Yeshitela for the Vanguard 2019 International Speaking Tour. Get him at your college campus, get him at your library. This is for those who are online. Get him at the bookstore to, speak about, this wonderful, amazing political report and everything it is that he just laid out. You can do that at contacting info@omaliyeshitela.org or call 727-914-3621. And I got another announcement from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement as part of how many cities? 10-city tour. All diamonds are blood diamonds. They will be coming to St. Petersburg, Florida next week, right here at the Uhuru House, or this week if you count Sunday as the beginning of this week. And that's from 7 to 9 p.m. right here. It's a call to action for white people to return diamonds and other stolen resources. Comrade Penny Hess, who you saw here, spoke. She will be speaking, as well as myself, at this amazing event. So visit uhurusolidarity.org for more info, or you can register blooddiamondsstpete.eventbrite.com. We also have another announcement about the Omali Yeshitela Resource Library, which again is an institution you can see. It just launched and it is open from 1 to 4 on Wednesday. So come see this beautiful collection of books that the chairman has been collecting over time. A library like no other. And then the last announcement is for the Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise. So after all year of amazing revolutionary work, the Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise set sail. It's the annual fundraiser held to support the work of the African Socialists International. And you can take the trip with us. We're going to Cuba and the Bahamas, December 14th to 19th, 2018. And we'll be sailing on the Carnival Sunrise from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And like I said, so it's from the 14th to 19th, 5-day trip filled with on and off board activities such as live games and contests, nightclubs, spas, swimming pools, fitness centers, and political education with the chairman. So you can register now. You can come actually to this table to get signed up. You can make your first deposits and call the travel agent, Linda Stern, at 732-972-4171. Everybody around the country and around the world can be a part of the Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise. And you can visit uhurulegacycruise.org for more information regarding that. So that's all I have for announcements, comrades, brothers, and sisters. Thank you all so much. And we are going to conclude this evening with another song from Comrade Imani. And, you know, feel free to get some refreshments and look at these books before we head out, but want to bring up Comrade Imani. Thank you all so much for attending. And, oh wait, before Imani comes up, Uhuru, sorry. One second. We raised $1,718 tonight, thank you. Uhuru, thank you to all of you. And Imani is going to sing us away on that note. Uhuru.
As Timba likes to say, Acapulco. If you guys didn't know, Timba is usually my favorite DJ on the radio when I'm on the air. So he's our baroprano, he's our baritone soprano. He can hit all my notes and then some. Acapulco. Okay, Chairman, this one's for you. I hope you know the words because you're coming up here to sing it with me. Did y'all see his face? Did you see his face? Come on, don't be shy, come on.
I gotta see the Reverend is leaving. I gotta shake the Reverend's hand. Now they're here.
He can come sing it too.
All right. As the Reverend Coward says, he's gonna get in touch and they're gonna send some supports, resources on tomorrow.
Hold on.
Okay, what are you singing? And
are you ready?
How am I supposed to help?
I got you.
Okay.
Hopefully it's one of your favorites.
Okay.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun up in the sky, you know how I feel. Reeds drifting on by, you know how I feel.
I'm singing silent. Go ahead.
When we get to the chorus. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
What do I do?
What's the next part?
I don't know.
And I'm feeling good.
Huh?
And I'm feeling good.
Say it again.
And I'm feeling good.
And I'm feeling good.
There we go. And I'm feeling good.
Do it, child. Don't let me mess up your song.
Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Da 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 da. You guys know I'm so goofy. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Dragonfly out in the sun. You know what I mean. Butterflies having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when the day is done. That's what I mean. It's a new world. Excuse me. Okay, this old world is a new world and a bold world for me. And I'm feeling good. Stars, when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. When freedom is mine, you know how I feel. It's a new world, it's a new life, it's a new day. And I'm feeling good. Thank you.
With Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Really want to thank you, Chairman, for sharing your evening with us here today. Holler at Reverend Coward. Uhuru, thank you all for contributing tonight, and thank you all to the live for participating. Yes, Uhuru, and again, I hope you heard all those announcements, and we'll be back here on Thursday night from 7 to 9 p.m., a part of the All Diamonds or Blood Diamonds tour. So come join us with the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Uhuru!